Okay, the next modifier we are going to look at, and we aren't going to go through all of them, but let's look at some of these. I made an I'll just start from scratch. I made an icosphere, just a standard icosphere, just to look at something different. And if you go to Add Modifier and choose Bevel, now remember that when we edited objects, there's also a bevel function within edit mode. This is a bevel modifier. It's different but similar. So the best thing I can say to do is to play around with, so right now I'm changing the width here in the modifier window. So this is the width of the bevel, and you can increase or decrease the number of segments. And if you say add, let's say 3 segments and we have a very small width, you can also change the profile. So if you zoom in here and you make the profile very low, it's almost like an indentation. And if you make the profile really high, it's gonna be protruding. So this is a good way to still explain to you, or to kind of explain the idea that this modifier is not yet changed in the actual geometry. So if I click on Tab to go into edit mode, you see that it's just the original icosphere. Nothing has changed. And if I grab a vertex, it's gonna the modification is gonna follow it, but the modification is not set yet. But let's look at this. So take a look at this. Actually, let's do this. Let's duplicate the object so we can see something. So I'm going to hit Shift D and grab it and move it over. So we've got 2 identical objects. They both have a bevel modifier added to them. Now this one, I'm going to go into tab mode so you can see that. And in this one, I'm going to apply the bevel. And now I'm going to go into edit mode. So see, the difference is that in the one that we applied, we created all this new geometry and new vertices. In the one where we didn't apply yet, it's got the original vertices. So that's probably the best way to explain how applying the modifier, what it does. It actually changes the geometry. So in this case now, if I wanted to, just choose that geometry and move it, it would look different than the unapplied one. Okay, so back to this one. Let's look at what that's really the majority of using the bevel modifier. It's not, I don't know what all of these things do. You're welcome to play around with them and see. All right, let's see if we can add one more to this video. Yeah, okay, so let's do one more. I'm gonna delete this object, and I'm going to get rid of that bevel modifier, so I'm back to this one icosphere. All right, let's play with mirror. It's a very basic one, pretty easy. Let's look at what mirror does. Now, if you go ahead and just hit the mirror modifier, you are going to see a change. Basically, it duplicates the object and it's mirroring it along the x-axis. If I mirror it along the y-axis and not the x-axis, it'll look like that, the z-axis. Okay, so what it's doing is it's mirroring. This is going to bring some other things into play that we already worked with. It's mirroring based on the 3D cursor or the origin point. I actually need to see what it's mirroring off of. So let's delete this. I'm going to grab this and move it over, add the modifier, mirror. Okay, so it's basing it on the origin point, it seems to me. Let's do this then. Delete this. So let's go into tab mode, go into our side view. I'm going to select this vertex, I'm going to right click, cursor to selected. Okay, and then I'm going to tab out and I'm going to say set origin. This is all review. You should know how to do this. Set origin, origin to 3D cursor. Okay, now let's see if this works. Now if I go to mirror it, there we go. So if I mirror it along the x-axis, it's going to mirror based on this 3D cursor. Actually, let's see. Yeah, it's based again off of the origin point, not the 3D cursor, and you can test that by doing this. Okay, so wherever the origin point is, I move the 3D cursor somewhere else, it's going to mirror it. So it's going to base that off doing it on the y-axis and the z-axis. Okay, so on the z-axis you're not going to see it. Good. You can also mirror it based on other objects that you've created. So this is a kind of a weird thing, but let's go ahead and try this. So if I select a new object and I create a cube, and I move the cube like over here. Now if I go to mirror this and I go back to this window, I can also tell it to mirror off that cube, which is weird. And so what it's going to do is it's going to use the cube as the point of origin to mirror from, and you can mirror it in the x, y, or z axis based on choosing an object. And you can also get rid of that, and it'll go back to the default. All right, so that's in there. So that is doing both the bevel and the mirror modifiers.